the Persuasive Influence Path. This path is about inspiring your audience. Kathy is a retired teacher. She taught for 31 years. She will share just a few vignettes of how she dealt with conflict in a speech entitled How Respect Overcomes Conflict. Please welcome past area director, Toastmaster Kathleen Lekadou.
Thank you. Good morning. It seems like Toastmasters Flores table topics related all to my speech. The conflict. Conflict is a disagreement where people disagree on values, motivations, desires, perceptions, and ideas. Which one of you love conflict? See, he does. He does. Well, I don't. If I have a choice, I would run the other way. Now, I compare conflict to a flame because it can start small and all of a sudden just burst into a fire. And I see that I compare a fire, people who start fire, aka the instigators, and then there are those who like to extinguish it, the mediators. Well, I trace back why do I like to avoid conflict. And I realized it was because when I was young, any type of conflict resulted in a physical trauma. For example, one day I had an argument with my sister. I don't remember what it was about, but all I remember, all of a sudden, we were wrestling on the bed, and then when we got up, she took a scissor and just threw it at me. I ducked, and it just hit the wall and bounced off. I was like, whew. So I thought to myself, that's the last time I have a problem with her. And we haven't had since. Another conflict with my best friend. We had an argument. Next thing we know, we had a physical fight. In elementary school, had an argument with a classmate. Again, a physical fight. So you see the pattern? So I was like, no more. Later on, fast forward, I chose a career that had absolutely no conflict. I became a teacher. Now, if you believe I had no conflicts, then I could sell you the Brooklyn Bridge. I'll give you an example of a student conflict. One day, I asked one of my students a question. So imagine I approach Cheyenne and ask her a question, and she just jumps up, curses at me, and then runs out the door. And I'm like, but I didn't make a fuss. I kept my cool and just kept on teaching. I said, I'll deal with the problem later, especially this was out of character for her. The next day, she came to school, and with the class, I greeted her the same way I would greet everybody else. When class ended, she approached me at the end of the period. She made sure everybody left, and then she apologized to me. Now, since I have she apologized to me and said she was on her period. Well, since I have a proclivity to forgive, I accepted her apology. And I said, next time, just say, can I go to the bathroom? And that's it. Well, from that point on, she used to be a mediocre student. From there, she became one of my top students. Now, a parent example. One day, a parent shows up unannounced to my classroom while I was teaching. And this angered me because I hate to be disturbed while I'm teaching. And she had her daughter next to her, and she started going on and on about, I don't understand why she's not doing well in your class. Her sister was always the top. Her sister's good at this. Her sister's good at that. I'm like, I was frustrated for her daughter. And finally, nicely, I interrupted her and said, I don't teach her sister. I'm concerned about her because she's smart, she's capable. All I want her to do is her homework. And then I heard her daughter say, "Finally!" Well, since then, she started doing her homework. Now, have I always been so amazingly gracious as a teacher? No. And usually it was because my anger got the best of me. For example, one day in the classroom, in front of all the students, I was arguing with one of the boys. And after a minute, I remember the rule. If you argue with a student, you automatically lost the argument. So I stopped myself, calmed down, and so I asked him to go across the hall to one of my colleagues' classroom so he could cool down. In the meantime, when he left, one of the school aides who I developed a friendship with took him over and found out what the problem was. So after class, she came to me, she approached me and said, "You know, he was going through some issues and it has nothing to do with you." So I said, "Okay," and I thanked her. Now, later in the afternoon, in the hallway, we were walking and he was coming towards me. And I could see on his face, he didn't want to see me. But I approached him and I said, "I'm sorry for the way I spoke to you today." And his face just changed. He smiled and we started talking. And then I said, "I understand people have bad days. Let's have a signal. The next time you have a bad day, just point to the door and I'll let you go." Problem solved. Now, when it came to colleagues, if I didn't like you, I just avoided you. That was it. Now lately I started reading this book called Winning Without Intimidation. And on page 123 it says, "Treat everyone the exact same way," with RESPECT. It doesn't matter what position they are, whether they're a millionaire or a person next to you, or a stranger or a friend. So please, I wish I had this book when I was teaching, because I realized in all those situations, the conflicts were resolved because I had respect for the other person. So take your time whenever you're angry. Just remember to treat everyone with respect, especially the ones who annoy you.